G'day, it's Nick Dingle here again. Welcome to lesson 5 for software engineering. We're going to have a look at operators in Python today. So an operator is a mathematical operation or something the computer can perform. Love my little joke here. And there are 4 main categories when it comes to programming. There are more, but these are the ones you should learn as the basics. There's arithmetic, there is assignment, there is comparison, and there is logical. And they all have their own little function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through this slideshow, and I'm going to then jump into Visual Studio at certain points, and we'll go through some demonstrations and examples of how to use these various operators in our day-to-day life. Now, the first one being arithmetic. It's as simple as it sounds if you know what arithmetic or arithmetic is. It is maths. It is the core operations. What you need to remember is that programming languages were made by nerds. What do nerds love most of the time? They love maths most of the time. So thus, programming languages are all about math. Now, we've got the bare bones basics, okay? We've got our adding, we've got our subtracting, we've got our multiplication, we've got our division, but then we've got 2 extra ones that might, be a bit of a curveball, maybe. You've got modulus and you've got exponent. Now, let's go back to the top and quickly go through each of these as an example and then look at some actual code. But essentially, addition is as simple as it sounds. You've got a value on the left and a value on the right. Now, for every single example in this slideshow, I'm going to be using A's and B's. Now, these are going to look like variables. Now, that does mean you can use variables. You don't have to, though. They could be integers. They could be floats. Hell, they can even be strings in some instances with Python. But just know that A and B are just sort of placeholders for a value as such. And so in this one here, we've got A plus B. And essentially, it's going to take the left and the right value and add them together. So A and B get added together. So in this example here, x equals 10 plus 5, which is going to be 15. So that's as simple as it gets. Subtraction works the exact same, okay? It's going to subtract B from A in this instance. And we use a hyphen symbol to represent that. Now, if you've got a numpad on your keyboard, you're going to see all the arithmetic operators on there, except for obviously the percent. And so, yeah, you write it the exact same way. X equals 10, subtract 5. So take away 5. Simple as that, which equals 5. And that gets stored in our variable called X. All right, multiplication's a little bit different. So we use the asterisk, shift number 8 on your keyboard, if you need that spelled out for you. The reason we use that and not the letter X is purely because the letter X is that. It's a letter. And so in programming, we need some other symbol to represent multiplication. So we use the asterisk to do that for us. So this here means 10 times 5, which will equal 50 in this case. Division, hooray, division. So we use a forward slash. Now, if you struggle to remember what's a forward slash and a backslash, like I did when I was growing up, a forward slash, you think about which way you have to lean forward and which way you have to lean back. So a forward slash has the top of it leant forward and a backslash has the top of it leant back. Okay, so this one here divides A by B, and in this case, the result would be 2. Now, you can do fractional divisions as well. You just have to store those in a float variable, which hopefully if you go back to the previous video and look at data types and things like that, it'll make a bit of sense. Now, the next one, modulus, is almost the exact same as a division. However, in this case, we're not interested in the whole value. So what, in the previous example, 10 divided by 5 would give us 2. That was the whole value or the result. In modulus, we divide, but we want the remainder. Okay, and this is really handy in a lot of times in things like you want to figure out if a number is even or odd. Well, you simply mod by 2. Or if you want to, sometimes use what's called a CRC check, you use a modulus to get the result. And I'm not going to go into details about that because this is a fairly simple video and I've already gone too far. So in this example here, if I take 11 and I perform modulus 5, we simply divide by 5. Okay, and typically a division would give us 2, but because it's 11, there would be a remainder. So in this case, 11 modulus 5 would result in 1 because the remainder in this particular operation is 1. All right, and then the final one 10, and this is to the power of, okay? So exponent, sorry, I was about to say modulus again. Exponent means to the power of. So 2 to the power of 10. So 10 times 10 is 100 in this case. Okay, so these are all of our core arithmetic operations. There are more. There are heaps more, okay? But let's quickly go into good old Python and let's start doing a couple of examples. So arithmetic operators can be used almost anywhere, okay? But there is a few mistakes that some of my early students make. But let's start with some simple examples. A equals 1, B equals 2. Now, if I want to use some arithmetic to start doing some calculations, just start using them. So C equals 3 plus 4. Simple as that. So C would become equal to 7. Okay. D equals 4 times 5. Okay. Simple as that. And then E equals, let's do 6 modulus. Actually, no, let's just do divide by 2. And then F equals 7 modulus 3, just so we can see what's going on. And let's print all these to the screen. Now here's a nice little shortcut for you. If you've typed a line and you want to basically copy and paste it below, maybe modify it slightly, in Visual Studio there is a built-in function of copy and paste. However, if you don't select anything on the line, you just put your cursor on that line and hit Control C and V, it duplicates the line. And I'm just going to hit V again and again and again and again. Okay, and then I can just simply go through B, C, D, E, F. All right, let's hit play and see what's going to come up on the screen. So we've got 1, 2. So A is equal to 1, B is equal to 2. Obviously, I didn't even use them. C is equal to 7, D is equal to 20. E is equal to 3. Now notice that it created a float. The 0.0 indicates that E is a float. And if I mouse over it, you can even see it's telling me that. The other ones are ints in this case. So we've got 7 modulus 3. Well, the remainder would be a 1. So it's resulted in a 1. Simple as that. Now, arithmetic can go absolutely nuts. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You can use other variables in your calculations, just like so. Okay, you can go absolutely nuts when it comes to this kind of stuff. And you can add in multiple. And I'll get to that mistake I was talking about soon. Minus 12. Perfect. Now, the mistake a lot of my early students make is in algebra, you're sort of taught that the left and the right-hand side are interchangeable. Okay, so a lot of students will start doing something like this. Now, this doesn't work in programming days. The assignment operator always expects a variable on the left-hand side and then an expression or a calculation on the right-hand side. So you can't do it any way around you want. You can't say 1 plus 5 equals h. It has to be h equals 1 plus 5 in this instance, okay? So make sure you just run that into your head really early on. Left and right-hand sides are not interchangeable. Now, the next thing, let's quickly go back to the slideshow. And what I'd ask you to do is have a look at this code, okay? Yeah, I'm just going to move my head out of the way. I'm going to ask you to have a look at this code and see if you can predict what's going to be printed on the screen. Then go to your Visual Studio and give it a go yourself. All right, so pause the video, have a go at that little activity, and then we're going to move on to something that's very important. So pause and move. PEMDAS, sometimes known as something else, but I know it as PEMDAS. So this is order of operation. Now, once again, because coders are nerds, they really love to stick to mathematical rules. So that means the rules that you were taught in high school and primary school still count. Okay, when you do a long operation, the order of operation will actually matter. So that means things in parentheses or brackets come first, things that are exponents come second, then multiplication or division because they are the same, then addition or subtraction, again, they're the same. So they come at the same stage. So PEMDAS. All right, so if you look at this giant line that I've written out here with all these operations and all these sets of brackets, you need to then figure out, okay, what's going to happen first, then second, then third, then fourth. And if you have a look at it, the inside brackets will always come first. So these blue brackets, this is one thing I love about Studio, is it color codes different sets of brackets. So you can tell which bracket belongs to which set. It's fantastic. So these blue ones will go first, okay? And inside this, we've actually got two operations, okay? We've got a plus and we've got a multiply. Now, because multiply is higher up in the order, that means the 5 times 2 happens first. So this will equate to 10. Then, because the plus is inside the blue brackets, that then happens next. So it'll be 13 plus this side, which was 10, which equals 23. So these blue brackets equate to 23. Now, the next thing that happens, we've got to divide, we've got to subtract and another subtract. We've got another set of brackets, right? These purple ones would come next, okay? So the blue ones were 23, then we subtract by 3, which gives us 20. All right, then we go to the next set of brackets, the yellow ones, which has got to divide by 2, and that would be 20 divided by 2, which is equal to 10. And then the last we've got is this subtraction on the end. So it's 10, take away 9, which equals 1. Okay. All right. So what I suggest you do to practice this, go and make your own, well, in that program, hopefully you made in the last slide, go and practice this. Practice chucking in all sorts of different operations and seeing what the result is and how it changes with brackets and things like that. Okay, so that's PEMDAS, and it's actually incredibly important. So moving along, assignment operators. Now, I've already gone through what an assignment operator is in the last video when we talked about making variables and putting values in those variables. We already looked at assignments. Okay, it's simply the idea of setting a value to a variable or something else. Okay, in this case, the one that we looked at was simply this top one here, A equal to B. And all that means is whatever's on the left-hand side gets assigned the value on the right-hand side. Now, the right-hand side can be an integer, it can be a string, it can be a Boolean, it can be a giant equation, it can be whatever. It could be a file from the internet's contents, you know, calculated to the nth degree, whatever. Like, it can go absolutely nuts. But just know that when you've got an equals, a single equals, you're changing the value of a variable, and that variable must be on the left-hand side, as I said in the last bit. Now, we have different assignments as well. Now, you can see that all of these come from our arithmetic operators. And what they do is they essentially take the value, perform the operation with what's on the right-hand side. So in other words, if A is equal to 1 and B is equal to 2, then basically it's saying 1 plus 2 equals 3, store that in A. So it's just essentially add on to, if that makes sense. So it adds the value of B to the existing value of A, then finally restores. So it's an add-on, okay? In this case here with the example, x plus equals 10, well, that just means whatever x is, increase it by 10, okay? If I just said x equals 10, that replaces the value with 10, okay? So if it used to be 5, then that 5 is gone, x is now equal to 10. But if I use a plus equals and x is equal to 5, it's 5 plus 10, 15, store that in there, okay? And the same thing for the rest of them. This is a subtract assignment. So in other words, take away 10 from 5, so minus 5. Same thing for the multiply assignment operator. Okay, we're going to times that by 10, so 50, store that in x. And then finally, x, we'll divide that by 10, which is equal to a half, store that inside of x. Okay, so these are just really quick ways of writing another way of writing. So let's quickly jump into Visual Studio. Okay, and I'm going to comment all this code out just to get rid of most of it, and I'll keep A and B. So to comment it out really quickly in Visual Studio, there's a lovely shortcut. And what I mean by comment is putting a hash in front of something. Now, a comment is essentially a line describing your code. And often you want to describe what it is you're doing. All right. And if I put a hash in front of a line, it's completely ignored by Python. It skips over it. So that means if I put a hash in front of all these lines, then it ignores every single one of those lines. And I can just write some extra code at the top. So the way to do this, to highlight your code like so and create them all commented out, hold Control and you press the K button. See down the bottom, it says K was pressed, waiting for a second chord. Then you press C after you do that. So K, C, like so. Okay, and to undo that, you highlight it and you press K and U for uncomment. All right, so let's comment those out. And let's have a look at these assignments. So if I do A plus equals 1, have a guess what you think is going to be printed. So it was 1, we add on 1, and it stores 2. Simple as that. Now you can also do this for other variables as well. If I say A plus equals B, see if you can figure out what that's going to be. Oh my God, it's 3. Okay, simple as, all right? They are just shorthands for something like A equals A plus B. This line and this line are the exact same. It's just sometimes a little bit easier to write plus equals, okay? It's just a little bit nicer. Just make sure you don't write that. Okay, if you write A equals plus B, that's just saying, all right, A is equal to a positive value of B. That's all it's going to do, and it won't work properly. Okay, so that's assignment operators. Pretty straightforward. Just use whatever operation on the left of the equals that you see fit. Next thing, so challenges. Have a look at the code that we've got here. Predict what you think is going to be the output. Pause, have a look, write down the code, see if you're right. And let's move on. Comparison operators, they're a big one. So comparison operators are comparing two values and returning a Boolean. So in this case, a true or a false to tell us if it was right or if it was wrong, essentially. Now, operators are typically used in what's called if statements and loops and things like that. And we're going to use them a lot in the future, but I like to introduce them nice and early on because it's just good to know them. So we have got an equals operator, a not equal to operator, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. So let's go back to this guy and have a look at it. So if I want to compare two values to see if they are the same. So for example, you're making a login system. If what they typed in is equal to their username, true or false? Did they type it incorrect or did they type it correctly? Okay, so if A and B are equal, then it returns true. And this example I've got here, 5 is equal to 10. Well, that's not true, so it is false. All right, then we've got the not equal to example. So not equal to checks if the two values are different. 5 is not equal to 10. That's true because 5 is not equal to 10. They are different, all right, in this case. The next one here, less than, less starts with the same letter as left. That's how I always think about it. It points to the left, okay? Because I know some people struggle with remembering which one is less than and which one is greater than. Less, left, there you go. All right, so is A less than B? And in this case, the example 5 is less than 10. Well, that is true. And then A is greater than B. It's the opposite. Okay, I don't really have a mnemonic for that one. 5 is greater than 10. Well, that's false because 5 is a smaller number. And then these ones down here are basically the same thing, but this checks if it's less than or equal to. So are they less than or the same number in this case? And I find people struggle with remembering these as well. And the way to remember where the symbol and where the equals goes, you simply think of how do you say it out loud? It's less than or equal to. So that's the order in which you put it. The less than symbol first and then the equal to right. So 5 is less than or equal to 10. Well, again, that's true. And then you've got the opposite, greater than or equal to. In this case, it's false. Okay, so once again, let's jump in, comment out some code. Let's just do some printing at the top. And we'll simply go 1 is less than 2. Okay, actually, no, let's just start with the equals because that seems more logical, doesn't it? Press play, and it just simply prints false with a capital F. Okay, as I said, it results in a Boolean, which is really important to note for later down the line. So print 1 does not equal 2. See if you can think what that's going to produce. 1 is less than 2. Then you got print 1 is greater than 2. And I'm going to do my copy and paste because I'm lazy. Greater than or equal to. And here's our 5 different answers. So predict what that's going to produce. And then let's have a quick go. So false because they're not equal to. True because they are different. True because 1 is less than. False because it's not bigger. True because it is less than 2. And then false because it's greater than. Okay, so those are our comparison operators. It checks one side to the other. And just like before, I've got a little challenge for you, which is essentially the exact same thing I just did. So it's not much of a challenge. So let's move on to the next one. We've got one more type of operator to look at. Now we've looked at arithmetic, which is our maths. We've looked at assignment, which changes the value of a variable. We've looked at our comparison, which compares two things and weighs them up. And then we've got a fourth one for today, and it's called a logical or a logic operator. And what it is, it's where you want to use your comparison operators, but you want to make a much more complex comparison because maybe you've got 3 things you have to check or maybe more. Okay. When you log into a system, you're not just checking the username, are you? You're checking a username and you're checking a password. So in this case, we have 3 logical operators to help us make more complex comparisons. So we've got the AND, OR, and the NOT. Okay. The AND operator has a left and a right-hand side, and the whole thing will equate to true if A is true and the B side is true. So what I mean by that, in this case, A doesn't represent just a single value. It actually represents a comparison, and then B itself represents a comparison as well. So if you look at these values here, this is A, 2 is less than 5, which is true. And then we've got 11 is greater than 10. Well, that is true as well. And the AND operator needs a true on the left and it needs a true on the right to produce a true. If either side are false, the whole thing equates to false. Okay, if you've ever done redstone in Minecraft and you've used an AND gate, you should know that both switches have to be turned on to produce an AND result. And if a single switch is down, then the whole thing is turned off. Okay, that's the exact same thing here. It is a logical operator. The OR logical operator is a little bit nicer. It basically says, well, if there's a true on this side or there's a true on this side, I'm happy. So in this example here, 2 is less than 5. Well, that's true, but 9 is not greater than 10. So that's false. But because there's a true on the left, the whole thing becomes true because a single one is true. All right. So a good example here is that's a username and a password. Both needs to be correct for you to log in. And down here, I don't know, maybe there's a random number generator. Okay, I can't think of a great example off the top of my head. Maybe I should have written one down, but I did. Now the NOT operator is a little bit out on his own. He only has one comparison to deal with, but what he does is he flips it. Okay, whatever the result of our comparison, A, here is, it inverts it. So 2 is less than 5. Well, that is true, but we've got a NOT operator, so it gets flipped on its head and it becomes false in this case. So it's the opposite. All right, so let's come back to our examples here and let's chuck in a couple of them. So we'll delete these for now. We've got 1 is equal to 2. That is false. So let's put an OR. 2 is greater than 3. Okay, so this side here is true. This side here is false. So that means it's going to result in a... Oh, I'm an idiot. I meant to put a less than. I'm so glad that I put that mistake on the internet. That's awesome. All right, that's better. This side here was false, but this side here was true. And with the OR operator, essentially it says either side is true, either switch is turned on, I'm happy. We'll turn the whole circuit on. Now this one here, 1 doesn't equal 2 is true, and 2 is equal to 3. Okay, that's going to produce a false because 2 is not equal to 3, even though 1 is not equal to 2, even though it's different. Okay, and then finally, the NOT operator, not, and let's do 10 is less than 9. Okay, hit play, and you see it says true for that one there. Because while 10 is less than 9, the NOT operator flips it on its head, and then it's done. And if you're into Minecraft, again, that's a redstone torch, where if you turn a lever on, the torch will turn off. Okay, it's the opposite of whatever goes into it. All right, and guess what, guys and gals? I've got one last little challenge for you. Have a look at that one there. See if you can figure it out. The last little bit there, I've tried to make a bit of a challenge. But that essentially brings us to the end. The only thing is I want to quickly note, I have not covered all the operators in Python. In fact, I've only started really scratching the surface. W3 Schools comes to the rescue again, and they're going to go through all the other different types of operators and even the arithmetic operators and the assignment operators that I did not even get to. There are tons. We covered all the logic and comparison ones because they're like finite, but we didn't look at every single one purely because I feel like this video has gone on long enough. All right, last thing. Once again, we have got a challenge for you today. Okay, you pause, mister. W3 schools exercise, once again, I'll link it in the video, but it's an operators exercise. And essentially, you're going to have to test yourself to see if you know your arithmetic operators, your assignment operators, and your comparison operators. And there are a few bitwise operators and things, so I suggest you keep this tab open to have a look and challenge yourself. So, thanks for this one, guys. I'll catch you in the next video.